This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Holy Land War Zone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. Israel is vowing a painful response after its arch enemy, Iran, fired nearly 200 missiles at the Jewish state overnight. Robert Sherman with News Nation says a lot of Israel is on edge today.
The scale and the caliber of these kind of attacks was really something unlike most Israelis have ever seen before. Quite literally, millions of Israelis spending hours inside of bomb shelters.
Correspondent Richard Engo.
Now the entire Middle East is on edge, expecting an Israeli reprisal. The only questions are how severe it will be and when.
Former IDF paratrooper Dan Fleisch says Israel's response will not be a pinprick.
We can expect a forceful response because the game has changed in the Middle East, particularly the last few weeks when Israel has taken the offensive to Hezbollah. Iran now is fearful that its regional empire of proxies is falling apart, that they are losing them one by one.
Reporter Weijia Jiang continues our coverage with reaction from the 2024 presidential candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
Harris said she unequivocally condemned the attack and said the U.S. would continue to work with allies to hold Iran accountable. Former President Trump declared the world has been, quote, unraveling since he left office and accused Biden and Harris of leading the U.S. to the brink of World War III.
Meantime, in Tel Aviv Tuesday, 2 terrorists went on a stabbing and shooting spree, killing 7 Israelis and wounding 8 others. Both attackers were shot dead by police. Authorities say that act of terrorism was not connected to the Iranian missile strike. The death toll continues to climb in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper.
We did an aerial overview to see the damage here in western North Carolina, and it is extensive and devastating.
Currently, there are over 160 confirmed fatalities across half a dozen states, most in the mountains of North Carolina, where pack mules are being employed to get emergency supplies to desperate survivors. Reporter Steve Harrington.
There is growing frustration as people lack the basic necessities, while government and volunteer groups bring in supplies by air, truck, even horses and mules. Residents say it can't come fast enough.
The Reverend Franklin Graham with Samaritan's Purse.
The need is incredible. There are hundreds of communities that are cut off.
Graham's group is based in Boone, North Carolina, smack dab in the middle of where the hurricane did its worst.
Our organization, our facilities are fine, but it's the families. A lot of our families lost their homes, or the roads are damaged. Some of them are still can't get out. It's a real mess.
Shannon Littleton's been working 19 hours a day to help repair power lines in South Carolina.
It can get overwhelming. You just got to take it one day at a time, 1 meter at a time, one wire, one pole, till we get it all back up.
President Biden will visit North and South Carolina today. He'll survey the damage by helicopter. Vice President Harris will assess the damage in Georgia days after former President Trump went there. It was a cool, calm clash. Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Walz mostly civil in last night's vice presidential debate. Abortion, the economy, and immigration, the main talking points as the two locked horns at the studios of CBS News in New York. Britt Hume with Fox News says Vance had the better night.
Moderators were obnoxious and made it feel like 3-on-1 on Vance. And Vance, for one so young, he seemed, in terms of his knowledge of policy, to run rings around Governor Walz, who I think did not have a very great night. He got better as the night wore on, but if you're rating this debate on points, it wasn't close. Vance had a good night.
Media critic Joe Concha.
I don't know if this moves the needle that much, but J.D. Vance, his favorables went up something like 25 points in some polls I saw after this debate. So the Trump-Vance ticket benefited far more from this night than the Tim Walz and Kamala Harris ticket.
An estimated 60 million Americans watched the debate, probably the last debate before the November 5th election. Tens of thousands of dock workers are on strike still. From Boston to Houston, it's threatening to throw a monkey wrench into the U.S. supply chain, kind of like COVID did. Billy Williams with the International Longshoremen's Association.
I think you're going to see it in anything that's imported right off the bat. The Walmarts won't have stuff on the shelves. The Home Depot, a lot of that stuff is made in other countries.
Nearly half of all U.S. imports are impacted by the job action. 100 categories of food depend on the now shuttered operations at 36 ports. It's the first strike of its kind in half a century. Brian Brenberg with Fox Business.
We're about to get hit big time if this strike goes more than a week. The political ramifications will be big, in my view, because the economic implications are going to be big. People will start to notice on the shelves, maybe in their prices, certainly as they start to think about the holidays and can I get what I need, they're going to notice it if this thing goes on all the way through October into November, and they're going to say, who owns this problem?
The dock workers' strike is costing the U.S. economy nearly $5 billion a day. Major League Baseball says its average attendance has grown in consecutive years for the first time in more than a decade. The average attendance this year rose nearly 1%. That marks the first time that it's grown in back-to-back years since 2012. The league drew in over 71 million fans this season for an average of nearly 30,000 fans per game. That's the most since 2017. Still to come on the Noon Report, a midweek edition. Catholic Church in court, teaching barbering in high school, and watch out for the deer this fall.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. As a cold front crosses the area today, it'll pave the way for some more pleasant weather as we head toward the end of the week. Forecast hotels are up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Let's check the stories making news where you live. Fresh off last night's debate, Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz is in central Pennsylvania today. The Minnesota governor is making stops in Harrisburg, York, and Reading, along with Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman. Pennsylvania Representative Clint Owlett is proposing a bill that would address creek and stream maintenance. The Republican says the reforms would help prevent the kind of flooding that decimated the northern tier earlier this summer.
This is a critical time and people are hurting and we know what we need to do, so now is the time to act on legislation.
The northern tier representative says due to environmental regulations, creek and stream maintenance is not happening as it should. Owlett thinks that lack of maintenance is why so much flood damage happened in towns like Westfield and Knoxville, thanks to Tropical Storm Debbie back on the 9th of August. The candidates for New York's 22nd Congressional District debated the issues last night at Syracuse University. Republican incumbent Brandon Williams is in a tough fight with Democratic challenger John Mannion. This race could go either way. That 22nd district covers all of Madison and Onondaga counties, as well as parts of Cayuga, Cortland, and Oneida counties. It was standing room only at the Fulton Alliance Church in Fulton, New York yesterday. Hundreds gathered to remember a fallen law enforcement officer. 33-year-old Kaylee Campbell died in the line of duty last week.
She wanted nothing more than to be a police officer. She was a great person, really hard worker, really driven to pursue this career.
She was just the most bubbly, outgoing, fun person to be around. She always picked people up when they were down.
Campbell was a deputy with the Oswego County Sheriff's Department. Her cruiser was struck by another vehicle at an intersection in the town of Volney last Wednesday. A federal bankruptcy judge in Buffalo has ruled that many of the almost 800 lawsuits against the Catholic Diocese of Buffalo can move forward. Pre-sex abuse survivors like the sound of that.
It's a great step forward.
It is time to move forward.
Everyone wants some resolution. Everyone wants to heal.
Time to own up for what you did wrong, and then everyone can move on.
The Buffalo Catholic Diocese says it is disappointed by the judge's ruling. Judge Carl Buckey will decide on a case-by-case basis which lawsuits can proceed to state court. He's scheduled to hear over a dozen cases next week. Pennsylvania remains one of the riskiest states for vehicle collisions with wildlife. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
A new report released by insurance company State Farm shows some interesting data when it comes to vehicles and animal collisions. The most dangerous month for animal collisions is November, and deer lead the pack as the top animal struck. In the report, Pennsylvania continued to lead the nation with the highest number of claims out of all the states, with more than 150,000. West Virginia ranked number 1 riskiest state for animal collisions, a spot it has held in the annual State Farm surveys for more than a decade. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you very much, Brian. 2 former Penn State fraternity leaders will spend the next 2 to 4 months in jail for the hazing death of a fellow student back in 2017. 19-year-old Timothy Piazza fell headfirst down a flight of stairs during a hazing ritual. It took almost 12 hours before Piazza received medical attention because frat members were told not to call for help. Pennsylvania politicians honored a doctor yesterday for his heroic actions when former President Trump was shot in the ear at a rally in Butler this summer. Dr. Jim Sweetland, a retired emergency room physician from Du Bois, performed CPR on one of the shooting victims. State Senator Chris Dush.
He deserves the recognition from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Instead of ducking and running, he realized where the rounds were heading, and he ran towards where those rounds were heading.
The doctor leapt into action when the shots rang out to assist a 50-year-old firefighter who eventually died from his wounds while shielding his family from the hail of gunfire. A Maine Endwell alumni and barber shop owner is partnering with that Binghamton, New York area school district to bring hair cutting skills to students. How about that? It's an idea that started as an internship and has now resulted in the creation of a mock barber shop at the high school. The Maine Endwell Barbering Program is the brainchild of Nicholas Sorrenti.
Higher education isn't the only way to be successful in today's world. There's a lot of opportunities outside of just school. Some kids learn great in the books, and other kids work better with their hands.
Students enrolled in the barbering program will host free haircuts for the community on Sundays, and at the end of the year, they'll take the test to become master barbers. The Buffalo Bills are going to be without star defensive player Von Miller for the next 4 games. He's not back until late October. The NFL announcing yesterday that Miller's been suspended for violating the league's personal conduct policy. An arrest warrant was issued for Miller last year after he was implicated in a domestic violence case. We've got sports next. It's the 2-minute drill right here on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, home field advantage was anything but that yesterday in the baseball playoffs. 3 of the 4 home teams lost. We begin in Milwaukee, where the Mets put it to the Brewers in a back-and-forth affair. Ultimately, it was New York who kept on scoring, and they came away with an 8-4 victory. Mark Vientos, Jesse Winker, and J.D. Martinez each drove in a pair of runs, and Luis Severino went 6 innings, allowing 3 earned runs to pick up the win. In Houston, Tarek Skubal spun 6 shutout innings to lead the Detroit Tigers to a 3-1 win. Jake Rogers, a pair of hits, and drove in a run for Detroit, who now have a 1-0 series lead over the Houston Astros. It was an old-fashioned pitcher's duel going down in Baltimore yesterday. Corbin Burns went 8 innings and only gave up 1 run. Only problem was, it was the only run scored in the game. Cole Reagan struck out 8 over 6 innings, and Kansas City's bullpen kept the shutout intact. 1-0 the final, as the Royals grab a 1-0 lead in their best-of-3 series against the Orioles. The Padres were the only home team to win yesterday as they knocked off the Atlanta Braves 4-0. Michael King outstanding on the hill. He went 7 innings and struck out 12 Braves. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit a 2-run home run in the first inning, and the Fathers never looked back. All 8 teams are in action again today, and just a reminder, if yesterday's winners win again today, they will advance to the next round. That is a look at sports.
All right, Randy, thank you very much. And still to come on the Noon Report for a Wednesday, how a local church is helping out in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. It's National Name Your Car Day. And Kev says warmer and drier days lie ahead. His forecast is yours. Right after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Presidential elections are often treated as the pinnacle of democratic engagement and American civic duty. Historically, voter turnout during presidential election years is about 1.5 times, or about 60% of eligible voters, that of midterm election years, which usually total only around 40% of eligible voters. In recent years, voter turnout has reached record highs for both presidential and midterm election years. And I suspect that the more that Americans trend towards relying on the government to solve their problems and provide for their needs, while simultaneously distrusting the other side to do so, well, these numbers are just likely to grow even more. Political engagement, especially in this particular politically charged season, is an especially difficult thing for Christians to navigate. Christians in America do tend to be more politically engaged and to vote than their non-Christian counterparts. This, of course, today frequently brings accusations of Christian nationalism, but those are only leveled at Christians on the political right, though there's plenty of data that suggests that they are actually more political than their conservative counterpoints. Liberal Christians are rarely ever accused of getting too political. Now, to be sure, there is confusion between politics and faith that happens on both sides of the political aisle and across denominational spectrums. Back in 2021, political scientist and statistician Ryan Burge noted that, and I quote, "Millions of Americans are being drawn to the evangelical label because of its association with the GOP. Many are neither regular churchgoers nor have any real attachment to Christian doctrine. This is just another way, as Burge put it, that, quote, what it means to be evangelical is being radically remade today," end quote. In fact, so much of our wider culture is being remade these days by all of the political heat. On one hand, citizens should vote. Christians especially should vote. It's a way of doing good. It's a way of loving our neighbor. On the other hand, it's not good when the political sucks so much air out of the cultural room. Currently, politics is carrying far more cultural weight than it is ever able to bear. For Christians, the confidence that Christ is Lord has to be the ground from which we engage politics. God has called us to be in the world even as we are not of it. He chose to put us in this cultural moment. See Acts chapter 17. Within a Christian worldview, one that sees every sphere of life as important and under the reign of Christ, the political is neither inflated nor trivialized. Christians can be engaged in politics without the other parts of our life together being subsumed by it. Christian political engagement must begin with a proper understanding of citizenship, especially that, first and foremost, we are citizens of the city of God. As such, we strive to live in accordance with God's law, to self-govern, according to the love of God and love of neighbor. When we do this, not only is it unnecessary to have more and more laws, Supreme Court decisions, or bureaucratic agencies for each and every issue of life, but we can be the best citizens of the city of man to which we have been called and placed. Second, our most important commitments, the commitments to love God and to love our neighbor, shape the values which shape our vote. The issues that we prioritize, whether the rule of law or the protection of the preborn, are first and foremost moral concerns that have political implications, not the other way around. Finally, our Christian political engagement should hit its fever pitch, not during election season. You see, the only way to relieve the political pressures of our day will be to build up the non-political and pre-political aspects of our lives together. That means especially the family and the church. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, great stuff. Thank you, John. Let's head outside next. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast. The call for this afternoon: showers, scattered showers, rather cloudy across central New York and eastern Pennsylvania. Clouds giving way to sunshine in western New York and western Pennsylvania. Cooler than recent days with high temperatures mainly in the 60s, dropping tonight into the 40s and low 50s, mainly clear, some valley fog late. Then ample sunshine tomorrow and Friday with high temperatures in the low to middle 70s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report. I'm your host, Bob Price. Thanks for checking in. Lots to get to again today, Wednesday, the second day of October. The death toll continues to rise from Hurricane Helene in the southeast. It is now the second deadliest storm after Katrina to strike this country the past 50 years.
It's evident that something historically horrific has happened here.
Everything's gone.
We have seen devastation on a level that we hopefully will never see again.
Robert Ray with Fox Weather has the latest from the mountains of western North Carolina. Many communities there cut off from the outside world.
The search and rescue is ongoing. They are still looking for missing people in these hills and mountains in western North Carolina. The devastation is so immense. Day 6 in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and one of the most destructive, catastrophic natural disasters.
More than 160 confirmed deaths in 6 states. Correspondent Craig Melvin took an aerial tour of the damage earlier today.
The view from above, post-apocalyptic. Towns washed away, some virtually wiped off the map.
President Biden will tour the hurricane damage later today in the Carolinas. He'll be in both South and North Carolina. The Mideast is very much on fire these days after Iran launched nearly 200 missiles at the state of Israel.
We know for certain that Israel will retaliate. They need to send a message to the Islamic Republic regime that this escalation can no longer stand.
Mideast scholar Eli Kohaman.
What we need to see from the United States, of course, is complete and full support for Israel and to give them everything that they need.
Israel vowing a painful response. Millions of Israeli citizens spent the night last night in bomb shelters. The abortion issue, a big topic at last night's vice presidential debate, probably the last debate before the election. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz called abortion a basic human right.
We trust women, we trust doctors. Let the individual states make their abortion policy.
That's Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, and he said Republicans need to be pro-family and they need to earn back the public's trust when it comes to the abortion issue. Those two also sparred on the economy and immigration in a surprisingly civil debate. So, who won? Most pundits gave the edge to Vance. Kristen Welker with the NBC Meet the Press program.
This election, it is incredibly tight. When it's that close, even minor inflections can make a difference.
About 60 million Americans tuned in to watch the debate. It's day 2 of the dock workers' strike at 36 ports along the East Coast and Gulf Coast. Nearly half of all U.S. imports are being affected by the work stoppage. It's got some people stocking up, pandemic style. The work stoppage is raising concern about possible supply chain issues. This man filled his cart at Costco.
With the strike and everything that's going on, I figured might as well come out and make sure we got everything that we need at the house. You just don't know what's going to happen in these times.
The dock workers' strike is costing the U.S. economy nearly $5 billion a day. Dozens of cargo ships are now stranded from Boston to Houston. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is back in federal court today to answer to 5 felony charges. Reporter Scott Pringle.
The judge will likely discuss a time frame for the start of Mayor Adams' trial. Adams wants it to start as soon as possible. Meanwhile, yesterday, the mayor did not want to comment on details of the allegations against him when questioned by reporters, leaving that to his lawyers. He did insist he will not be stepping down.
I can do this job, and I will continue to do this job.
Adams has pleaded not guilty to several charges. His defense team's trying to get the bribery charge dismissed. Scott Pringle, New York.
A Virginia school board has just agreed to pay a former high school teacher more than $500,000 after firing him for refusing to use the preferred pronoun of a transgender student. The French teacher sued the district, saying his First Amendment rights were violated. A college volleyball team is drawing a line in the sand when it comes to transgender athletes.
The women's squad at Boise State has decided to forfeit a game rather than play a team that includes a man.
can. Idaho Governor Brad Little says the school did the right thing in opting not to play San Jose State, sending out a message on X that reads, quote, "We need to ensure player safety for all our female athletes and continue the fight for fairness in women's sports." A growing number of women's sports organizations are coming out against males on female athletic teams.
Michael Harrington reporting the American Academy of Pediatrics says suspension from school has a devastating impact on a child's mental health. The doctors group argues such disciplinary action for bad behavior undermines early childhood development in older children. It can lead to increased dropout rates as well as drug and alcohol addiction. Unruly behavior caused by social media, leading to unprecedented problems in the classroom. Many teachers report kids behaving badly is as bad as it's ever been in public education. Next at noon, how a Western New York church is stepping up to help out in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene.
We were not prepared for this.
Bridges, infrastructure, it's just destroyed. It's going to take years to build this back.
People who were hanging on by trees while floodwaters came in and they were rescued.
There is no power.
People are still missing.
My daughter is down in Marion. She can't get up the mountain.
We have 92 search and rescue teams.
We just felt like we needed to do something. I still had power. I still had my family. I knew where they were, and other people can't say that.
This is Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. If you feel like you need to do something for Hurricane Helene victims, listen for the next few minutes. Helene left a 400-mile damage path in 6 states. It is one of the most fatal storms in modern U.S. history. Hundreds are still missing. Riverside Chapel in Salamanca will have a 35-foot enclosed trailer in the Family Life parking lot today, Thursday, and Friday from 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. to gather supplies for Helene victims. With me is Susan Weaver, the event organizer. So, Susan, tell me what you're collecting.
They desperately need water, toilet paper, generators, gas cans, gas, ladies' hygiene products, can't cook stoves. They have no way to cook, and the propane for those, batteries, flashlights, extension cords to go with the generators, chainsaw, the salt oil, diapers, wipes, shampoo, soap, pet food, just the basic necessities to keep people alive. Paper products like paper plates, plastic silverware, can openers, non-perishable food, of course. And then there's a secondary list, which I believe is on your website. Anything at all that anybody can do to help is greatly appreciated.
You can find the list at familylife.org/relief. How are you going to get it all down there?
Well, we have 1 or 2 trailers, and we will take multiple loads, and we would just keep going until the products are all down there to the people. We have an evangelist, Dave Kissler, that we are working with, and then it will be going to Salem Free Will, Ambassador Baptist Church, and Connolly Springs Free Will Baptist Church. And each of those pastors are then putting it on the smaller loads that they can get up into the mountains.
And when you say mountains, we're talking about the mountains of North Carolina.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you do what you do? Why does this matter to you?
How can we sit here and not do anything? We've all been affected by power outages here, but if we were in a similar situation, if it were us or our kids or our grandkids that were suffering, we would want people to really help us. You know, their supplies are depleted down there. We have more than we need up here, and it's easy for us to share them just by taking them down. Many hands make work. We have 8 million listeners up here in this area. That can really impact this devastated area. There's 2 people sharing 1 bottle of water for the entire day. We can't even fathom how desperate the situation is.
What do you think that the people in these states need more than anything?
Well, everybody needs Jesus. But I would say after that, the number 1 priority would be water.
How do you see Jesus showing up through this project and through the stories down in the South and through the work that you guys are doing?
By doing acts of service from New York to North Carolina is being the heart of Jesus and sharing his love with them. Just to feel our love in New York. We're all Americans. We're all humans. We all have basic needs. And I think they will see Jesus in that. And to know that here's people in Western New York associated with Family Life Radio that cared enough to help somebody who they didn't even know. I think that makes a big impact. Anything that you can do is desperately needed, and we really appreciate everything.
When you show up and you give with all of your heart, you are showing these people Jesus Christ. I'm excited to see the impact that has spiritually on these areas of North Carolina.
I trust that people are drawn back to him through it. I mean, he uses disasters and things like this to do that. So I agree with you. I really hope this brings glory to God in the end.
Susan Weaver with Riverside Chapel in Salamanca. You can come to the Family Life headquarters in Bath, New York. We've got a 35-foot enclosed trailer taking donations today and Thursday and Friday. You can learn more at familylife.org/relief.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. Also at that website, familylife.org/relief, you can find a complete list of reputable groups taking part in hurricane relief efforts right now in the Southeast. Please give generously if you can. This is the Noon Report on Family Life.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. On the latest weather map, we're tracking cold front crossing the area, and it will be accompanied and has been accompanied by some showers. But in the wake of the front, the sky is clear, the air cools, and it sets the stage for a nice pattern as we head through week's end. The call for this afternoon, showers, scattered showers, rather cloudy across central New York and eastern Pennsylvania. Clouds giving way to sunshine in western New York and western Pennsylvania. Cooler than recent days with high temperatures mainly in the 60s, dropping tonight into the 40s and low 50s, mainly clear, some valley fog late. Then ample sunshine tomorrow and Friday with high temperatures in the low to middle 70s.
Thank you, Kevin. Finally, at noon today, most of us spend more than an hour a day in our cars, so we might as well give our car a name. Bree Tennis has more on National Name Your Car Day.
Naming your car is strictly an American thing. Other countries think we're odd driving vehicles with names like Baby, the most popular, or Betty, the second most popular car name. There are famous cars like Kit from Knight Rider, the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzards, and Herbie the Love Bug. Or how about a scary car name like Christine? There are lots of cars out there named Please Start or Oh No Not Now. But AutoWise says of those who name their ride, 53% of us choose girl names. I'm Bree Tennis.
All right. Thank you very much, Bree. And that's our world, folks. The world we live in. Wednesday, October 2nd. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.